Thanks for joining us here on the Market Day Report. I'm Marlon Bowling with you on a Tuesday, and we are going to go to the phone and bring in Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. Get his thoughts on what's going on in the trade today. And let's go there right now. Rich, one thing about some of the early discussions that I heard regarding the markets today was focused on this new tariff that's been proposed preliminarily, I understand, from the Trump administration on lumber coming out of Canada. And that sent some shockwaves through the industry. And I noticed that the lumber prices were indeed about limit down again today after a sharp drop yesterday. Now, I recall a couple of weeks ago we had the lumber prices going limit up for a day or two with the advance notice that that may be happening. So what's going on, and is that having any spillover effect on the ag commodities industry here, or making people nervous anyway?
Yeah, it's actually a great point here. Now, as far as this whole lumber dispute, this actually was just started actually about a year ago. The previous administration had already started investigations on Canada's subsidization of their lumber program. It's actually pretty important for us because we get 31% of our nation's softwood lumber from Canada directly. And in terms of the discussions with Wilbur Ross here yesterday afternoon, he did mention we've got tariffs in New York from 3 to 24%, depending on the product, with an average of around 20%. So this is something we're going to watch here. Does have implications for us on the ag side if this would spill over maybe into dairy or other type of issues. For right now, I got to say, it looks like the trade's saying this might be just a lumber-only issue for us to talk about for right now.
Now, did I understand correctly? Did you say this has been mounting for maybe a year now?
This had been under investigation even from the previous administration for about a year now, yes.
So that actually straddles over a couple of administrations here. So just wanted to clarify that for everybody in case they want to point fingers that everything just happened here overnight. This has been an ongoing dispute, that's for sure. The corn market turned around after having a little pressure overnight. When USDA came out with their planting progress numbers, they kind of surprised a few folks with the good planting progress. Well, my goodness, we're up 5 or 6 cents right now. It looks like about 6 higher at the last check on the May contract. And December was 5 3/4 higher at 9.65. Well, that would actually be a soybean price there, but it's been higher here by several cents here this morning. Are you surprised by the turnaround that you're seeing in this corn market now?
Actually, we certainly are, and I wouldn't suggest this is going to be any outside market issue. In fact, a lot of people pointing out that a lot of these rain totals, which you guys have certainly covered quite a bit here these past couple of days, for Missouri and Illinois, will be some pretty heavy numbers, and perhaps this talk of localized flooding and whatnot in portions of the Corn Belt. And Illinois is the number 2 corn and soybean state. This might be something that we just can't ignore too much. In fact, as we're talking right now, we do have this market pushing up a little higher. In fact, last trade on corn, December contract, up 7 1/4, puts them at 3.90 3/4. Actually, we're now within reach of those previous highs, 4.04 for December contract. Over on soybeans, we are still lower for the day, down about 5 in the nearbys. Last trades on November, down 4 3/4 at 9.62 here and change. So bottom line for these markets, certainly on corn, maybe we are recognizing as we go into this weekend, we do have some planting delays up ahead here.
So in between time, it's going to be interesting to see how much progress we can make with a couple of open days in much of the Corn Belt. With all that new equipment nowadays, they can crank out a lot of acreage in a hurry. We'll have to wait and see how much they can get done by next weekend when we get our next update, and that'll be done with a survey as of Sunday by USDA to show our planning progress for next Monday, that's for sure. The wheat market a little higher as well. Rich, I want to take a little break here and bring you back, and we'll talk a little livestock market action as well, see what's going on there when we come back with Rich Nelson. Well, we're back with you to talk with Rich Nelson of Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. I wanted to get Rich's thoughts here on this livestock trade that we're seeing today. We had a lot of apparent profit taking hit the cattle market yesterday. Rich, some folks were wondering if we would see follow-through selling today. Well, we had that cold storage report that came out late yesterday, and it did show that we had declining freezer inventories of the beef and the pork compared to a month ago and also a year ago. So the markets seem to kind of take that news with a positive tone here this morning. Seems like everybody's in a little better mood as far as the prices here on the beef and the pork.
That's right. I think the way we can say it is Friday's cattle on feed report were those pretty heavy March placements, maybe stopped the trade's big uptrend temporarily, and perhaps you could argue that this cold storage report from yesterday, which showed a 38 million pound drawdown in March, normally it's in fact it's a bit more, quite a bit more milder than that. In terms of the trade focus, perhaps we're going to say maybe we can get back up here. We do have a gap on the charts to point out as well in these charts for the June contract, 22 cents wide. Perhaps that's also a little target for the bulls, which are still, for right now, holding onto the market very well.
Given the fact that we have had the futures trade on the cattle kind of stabilize a little bit here today with just fairly small gains, what do you think is going to happen here on the cash cattle trade here this week from what you hear through the grapevine?
Our best guess right now is to estimate this market at a more of a steady trade here for this week's discussion. We still have a rising beef going on and still a short-term tight supply. All these changes we're all talking about regarding supply will be a late summer and fall tonnage problem. So for right now, bulls could argue that they still have enough momentum, perhaps on the short-term fundamentals, to at least garner a steady trade. I don't know if we'll trade higher this week, but right now we'd say steady at best.
How significant is it that we had the carcass weights coming down, about 10 pounds or more in the last week on the cattle?
It's actually a pretty big deal for us on a seasonal basis. We all know we drop in terms of weights, but this year's slide has certainly been quite a bit more abrupt than normal. In fact, these lower weights are now cutting off about 2.4% of the total beef production number. So in other words, we might be putting out 7 to 9% more cattle, but we're only getting 5 to 7% more beef out of those numbers. So it's not certainly curtailing somewhat what would have been an oversupply situation.
Looks like on the lean hogs, we're up a little over $1 here this morning, and in the mid-session trading at this point, that would be day 2 of a positive trend here in the hogs. Is the low in your opinion?
Marlon, I got to say so. I think for right now, the only discussion I'm getting from the cash hog side, which we do each day here with many of these players, only discussion right now is whether cash hogs are now going to be cushioned, perhaps while around for a couple days, then go up, or whether some are saying, maybe we've got packers saying this is a good price right now. End users are pointing out that compared with beef, pork is probably a good value right now, especially as we're getting ready to really hit the procurement for the very heavy May and early June supply time.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that I actually did see a significant drop in the pork prices at the retail counter here over the past week or so. Seems like they have been doing quite a bit of specials and featuring here this past week. So that's obviously showing up in that cold storage report. Rich, as always, thanks for all the input on the markets. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
All right, Rich Nelson with Allendale Incorporated in McHenry, Illinois. Hogs adding to the gains here so far. Christina, you were right. So now they're showing triple-digit gains here today.
Thank you, Marlon.
For the time being.
For the time being, we know it's going to